Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Thank you very much for joining me. Our patient is a 2004 Subaru Forester. This is AH700 turbo H4 TC engine. What's wrong with it? We have a description over here. The Forester had just its head gasket replaced and the battery was dead. It had been jumped and actually ran fine with a few codes. After the codes were worked out, the car was jumped again and driven outside the shop to be parked. A day later, they went to move it again, jumping it, and the car wouldn't start. 3 different automotive computers were used, including 2 snap-ons. Without successful communication with the ECM. A known good ECM was used to communicate with the vehicle, though none start due to immobilizer, of course. After all of the external testing, their analysis suggests a bad driver on the ECM. A bad driver on the ECM. That's, yeah. You know what that means. That means we have no idea what's wrong with it, but we know it's the ECM is bad. But we don't know what on ECM is bad, so it's a driver. The other consideration is the car has custom tuning via cab access port, which is mirrored to this ECM. Well, that's the problem, because yeah, we have the replacement, and I can clone the VIN and immobilizer. Sure. But I cannot clone the map. So first, let's see if we can fix this one. And then, just in case, we're gonna clone it anyway. So we know that it has been jumped a few times, right? Now, typically, jumping the car doesn't really break anything. But these, especially on those turbo-charged engines, it happens quite often. I'm not sure why. It's a different ECM than the non-turbo, naturally aspirated. Different connectors over here. So it's like inside it's probably different as well. But usually we work on these because they break, number one, and they can be, some people want like $800 for this ECM. It's not worth that much, but some people want that. Oh, what happened here? Why is it stuck? It was stuck to the case, which makes me think that there was some liquid damage, and judging by the color, this looks like soda, which would be a bad news. Typically, it's a bad news, but let's see. No, it doesn't look like liquid damage. It looks more like some old conformal coating. It's not sticky. Not sure. So I was hoping that this one would have a very nicely visible crowbar circuit, but I do not see it, because that crowbar reacting would explain this. Essentially, again, I don't know why, but it's very common on these for the crowbar to react, to just latch, and that blows the resistor, and the ECM is dead. So before we connect the power, let's make sure that we don't have any shorts on our 2 power rails. Oh, and we have a short on 1 power rail. This one's fine, but this one is shorted. Well, there's your problem. So that was a quick one. Yeah, this is dead short. Let's see the resistance. 3.8 ohms. So that's a semiconductor shorted. And since there's no crowbar circuit, my money is on the MCU. Which means all we can do is clone this. I don't even need to connect it. But first, let's see if this is the MCU that is shorted. Let's catch a nice ground over here. And Actually, we can just check on this cap over here. Now this is 12K. Okay, let's check on this one. Yeah, it's fluctuating a little bit, but this is fine. All right, if the MCU is good, we're good. We should be able to fix this. Oh, that's where it is. That is where we have our 3 ohms. That's too bad. So I cannot recover the map from this one, even if I wanted to, because in some cases, you can just swap the chip, right? Just grab this one, grab the VIN. By the way, where's the VIN? The 405, IC 405 is unpopulated. That's weird. What is going on here? So, well, I can't clone it without IC 405 because that's where the data is. So that must mean that we have an internal EEPROM, but since the MCU is fried, and unfortunately on these it's pretty common. We do have to confirm that though. But if it's an internal EEPROM, I cannot clone it. It needs to be initialized in the vehicle. That's the only way, because I can't grab the data from the broken chip. So what we want to do is just hook up the wires to here and here, because we could just power it on from the regular, from the pins, from the outside the ECU. But then this transistor is gonna be getting hot, right? Because the short is somewhere here, and most likely it's the MCU. So we're gonna bypass the transistor, and we're gonna just hook up over here on this cap and see what's getting hot, and most likely it's going to be the MCU, unfortunately. Well, let's do a little drop of flux. Put a little more solder here, and a little more solder on the other side. And we're gonna do the black on the right. It's a tiny wire, but it should be enough. Now, the reason you want to use larger wires typically is because you don't want the wire to get hot, right? But it all depends on how much current you're pushing. Right, we're not gonna push a lot here. We are set to 700 milliamps, and that's what we're injecting. Voltage doesn't matter. Why does voltage not matter? Well, because we have that short. Well, 3 ohms short. So we could do some calculations here, but essentially the voltage is gonna drop to minimum. So it's only the current that matters. All right, let's see. Well, we're still a little hot over here after soldering. Let's blow on it. Okay, it still shows that a little bit hot, but it should be enough. All right, and now let's pray it's not MCU, but I'm sure it's going to be MCU. We're grabbing 1 watt. The MCU is cold. That is weird. That is weird, but it's great news. That's not normal. That is not normal and not expected at all. I will increase the voltage. So the volts are set to 2. Let's inject 3. So this rail is roughly, I don't remember, about 4.5 volts. Right, so we can't exceed that. So up to 3 volts we should be fine. And this, yeah, this is not normal. Hang on, let me do a little more digging here. Yeah, that's crazy. We got 2.5 volts, 700 milliamps, and the only thing getting hot is our big chip over here. But we are reading short on the MCU, but MCU will be on the same rail as this chip because they're both logic chips. Yeah, the temperature of the chip right now is 52 degrees. 53. So way too hot. It doesn't run that hot. But this is the chip that seems to be shorted. So now, yeah, but nothing else is getting hot. Yeah, that's crazy. I've never seen the case like this. So IC 404. Let's read the markings on it. Is it Denso chip? Yeah, there's a big D. So the reason I'm cleaning it and around it is because I think the only option over here is to replace this chip, but the question is, what does this chip hold? Typically, it's the MCU that holds the, well, in this case, since we don't have an external EEPROM, so it will likely have an internal flash or internal EEPROM, just much bigger than 2 kilobytes. And that will be stored in the MCU, right? So MCU will hold the immobilizer data, the VIN, the map, all that stuff. And all the other chips are just responsible for kind of like output stages and stuff like that. But this chip is not an output stage. And we know that because we have 4 megahertz quartz right next to it. And the MCU uses 10 megahertz, right? So typically when I see a combination like this, the main MCU controls like basically a brain of the ECM, and this chip usually controls transmission. It's basically a TCM inside the ECM, but that's not a rule. All right, supposedly this chip can be freely replaced. It's a coprocessor, and probably, yeah, I'm not too sure about that, but right now nothing works. It doesn't communicate because our rail is just being pulled by this chip, right? Pulled to ground with that 3 ohm short. If we just remove this chip, if I connect to the ECM on the bench, I should be able to read the VIN and essentially communicate with the device. Now, I'm told that these don't have immobilizer. They started putting immobilizers in 2005. But here's the trick about Subarus. Just because this one came from 2004 doesn't mean it's 2004 architecture. It actually looks more like 2005 architecture when I look at it. So typically 2004 didn't have immobilizers, but this one does, because the customer confirmed with the replacement. It wouldn't work because it was locked. It's not only VIN locked. And the absence of this chip essentially tells me that this is a little more complex. So it's not typical 2004, not even typical 2005, because 2005s usually have the EEPROM over here. And as you can see, this one still has the place for it, right? Still has the pods, but no chip, which is typical on these, on Subarus in general. When they make updates, or back then, when they made updates, they would not change the board. They would just change the programming of the MCU and keep the same board essentially, but not populate some things. And oftentimes also, like over here, this one, that's a CAN filter, right? The CAN is not going to work without that filter. But then in later models, you still have the place for the CAN filter, but not populated. And all kinds of stuff like that. So this is very common on these. All right, let's check the replacement. This one's been sitting out, plenty of gunk on it. I don't know if you can see that. That didn't help much. Well, just as well, because we're gonna use it for parts. Looks like there's plenty of corrosion. from sitting out. And doesn't look like bad corrosion, but this crystal probably won't work. And all the corrosion and stuff is just kind of limited to this side of the board. Now let's see if we are good on this one. Let's check the output over here. 473 ohms. Well, it still seems a little low, but it's no short, right? All right, so what we gotta do is remove this chip, then remove this chip and place it here. And that should revive the ECM, and that should be it. But what caused it? A lack of crowbar circuit. So if this was 2003, 2002, this would have a crowbar, and that prevents this exact issue, which seems to be common. I don't know why, but actually it's more common that it's the MCU that takes a hit for some reason. But here, our coprocessor took a hit, which is good, very good. All right, let's get to it. All right, this took way too much time. I'm exhausted, I gotta tell you. Now you notice that I damaged some traces on the board. Hopefully none of the vias that seem like the solder oozed from them, hopefully none of them are damaged. If they are, well, we'll see. I don't know what's up with this chip, but it is really thick, right? So it looks like it carries a lot of thermal mass. I've done the MCU replacements many times, super easy. This chip, super hard, crazy hard. Now I'm kind of thinking, if that other board was in better condition, no corrosion and stuff, I would just opt for replacing the MCU, taking MCU from this one and putting on that one instead of resoldering this chip. Crazy. All right, moment of truth. First, power. Oh, it doesn't take any power. Oh, okay. It will work much better when you actually connect it. Okay. Oh, 0.5 amp, but we got can high, can low. Okay. Why is it taking 0.5 amp? 6 watts. I mean, it could be because ignition switch is on, so it will take a little more power. And I need to, okay, because now my X tool is charging, so I need to increase the current. There, yeah, 21 watts. And let's do diagnostics, and let's do OBD and auto scan. It should detect it by now. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Which is weird, because we have can high and low over here. Yeah, that's not good. Connection failed. Let's do a pull up, but I don't think that's gonna change anything. It did blink. Over here, but no, it's not connecting. That is weird. We got proper power consumption. We got CAN indicators. Something's not right here. Yeah, I can see the activity on the CAN line, but no communication. That is not ideal. And the K line is flashing, that's not right. Let's see what we can see on the thermal. Yeah, the MCU is working. Yeah, nothing's overheating. Everything looks good on the thermal image. The CAN indicators are all indicating. Let's just make sure I didn't mess up I didn't flip the low and high, because one time I did that and that was the problem. 26 is low. 26 is low and 18 is high. That is weird. Because here everything is indicating correctly. The thermal image is looking good. MCU is working, so it tries to communicate, but for some reason we don't see, or the tool cannot connect. Could there be something wrong with my tool? I don't think so. I wouldn't think so, but this is probably the first time I'm using it since I moved, so you know how it is. Okay, I know what the problem is. This is 2004. It does have CAN, but it uses K-line. That's why I can't connect. And with this, for some reason, I'm not sure why, but I can never connect with the K-line on the bench. I can never connect with this, which is weird, because when the ECM is in the car and I connect this to some older cars, it works. It's probably related to my interface over here. That's probably what the problem is, because when I connect it in the vehicle, I just use this, right? I don't use this. I never actually checked that, but that's what I think is going on. This is just a little too, I don't know what the reason is. I could perhaps, yeah, but if I do that, I won't be able to power it down. Yeah, because there's no power here. So, well, that's most likely the culprit why I can never do K-line on the bench. But we don't know that, unfortunately. But since the thermal image is okay, MCU is turning on, everything seems to be working fine. I'm gonna call it fixed, and we're gonna ship it back, and we shall see what the result is. Now, the main good thing about this one is that the MCU survived. Right, so all the VIN, the immobilizer, the map, the custom tuning, everything is over here, and all of that is saved. The only problem was here, and it looks like the problem is resolved. I can send you this as a souvenir. And that's it. Let's power off the X tool, and we're done. This should work. Alrighty, hope you guys found this useful in any way, or at least a little entertaining, me fighting with that chip. The lesson for the future is, especially if you have a replacement ECM, instead of replacing this chip, just swap this chip. A lot easier, much easier. Thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate you, and I shall see you guys in the next one.